Rain needles the concrete, stitching reflections of red and blue lights into the soaked city streets. Officer Daniel Rourke stands rigid in uniform, boots sinking into puddles, jaw locked in duty. Ahead, a group of displaced souls huddles under cardboard, their eyes tired but patient. One frail woman, Martha Vance, 67, steps forward, with trembling hands clutching a damp blanket. Daniel's voice cuts through the drizzle, sharp and impatient, warning her back. She whispers something lost to the wind, a prayer, a memory, and he reacts too fast. His arm extends, shoving her away. She falls. Silence. The sound of rain becomes unbearable. Reporters freeze mid-shot. Officers glance toward him, and guilt blooms like fire under his ribs. Then, from the black car pulling up to the curb, Mayor Elijah Vance emerges in his immaculate gray suit, the embodiment of order. Cameras flash. He smiles. But the smile withers as he locks eyes with the fallen woman. His voice breaks. "Mom?" The word lands heavier than the storm, turning sirens into whispers and duty into disbelief. Inside the precinct, the air hums with whispers and flashing notifications. Daniel sits at the interrogation table, soaked uniform clinging to his frame, the sound of dripping water echoing in the silence. Laura Pierce leans forward, eyes sharp with controlled empathy. "You understand what this looks like?" she asks. He nods but says nothing. On a nearby screen, footage of the shove loops, slow motion, merciless. The mayor's voice trembles in the clip, calling out, "Mom," again and again. Daniel's face tightens. He mutters that he didn't know, that she came too close, that it wasn't like that. Laura doesn't interrupt. She just watches, seeing not a monster but a man cornered by his own reflexes and guilt. Justice, she knows, begins not with punishment, but with truth. At City Hall, Mayor Elijah Vance stands before reporters, drenched in guilt and flashbulbs. His aides whisper damage control, but his focus stays on the hospital screen in front of him. A live feed of his mother lying unconscious, her frail chest rising and falling. His voice cracks as he tries to speak of compassion, of reform, of second chances. But the words feel hollow against the memory of leaving home years ago, chasing power while his mother slipped through poverty's cracks. Behind him, Reverend Cole watches silently, sensing that God's justice is not the punishment of the cruel, but the humbling of the proud. In the hospital room, Martha Vance's eyes flutter open beneath soft morning light. Machines beep softly as Laura sits beside her, holding her weathered hand. Martha whispers through cracked lips, "He's still my boy?" Laura nods gently, her notebook closed, her eyes softened. Outside the glass, Elijah watches, not as a mayor, but as a son paralyzed by guilt. The nurse adjusts the blanket, her movement quiet as confession. Justice in this room feels different, not like courtroom verdicts, but like forgiveness, learning to breathe again. That night, Daniel walks through the alley where it all began. The rain has stopped, leaving puddles like mirrors reflecting broken neon. He kneels where Martha fell, fingers tracing the cracked pavement as if seeking penance in the concrete. Reverend Cole approaches, the scent of wet earth following his steps. "Justice isn't about who falls," he says softly. "It's about who helps them rise." Daniel nods, eyes glistening as thunder murmurs overhead. Somewhere in the distance, the mayor's voice carries through a television broadcast, promising change. The city breathes differently now, uncertain but awake. The morning after the scandal, City Hall feels like a pressure cooker. Reporters swarm the marble steps, their voices echoing against the pillars like angry bees. Inside, Detective Laura Pierce moves with quiet purpose, eyes darting between screens showing the footage of Daniel's shove on loop. She stops before a monitor frozen on the mayor's stunned face. Behind her, Chief Morais, gruff and pragmatic, mutters that the department needs a fall guy before the public tears them apart. Laura doesn't answer. She's already piecing together inconsistencies, No one knew the mayor's mother was missing. No records of her since 12 years ago. Something bigger hides beneath this. As she steps out into the hallway, sunlight cuts across the marble like judgment itself. In this city, truth doesn't come from reports. It bleeds through silence. At the hospital, Elijah Vance sits beside his mother's bed. Her hands, frail but steady, rest atop his. "You always wanted to save this city," she whispers. "But you forgot to save yourself." Elijah's throat tightens. He had searched for her once, long ago, before the campaign, before the lies that built his reputation. Now the cameras outside chant his name for all the wrong reasons. He tells her he'll fix this, that he'll make things right, but she only smiles faintly, whispering, "You can't fix what you hide." The words slice through him sharper than any headline. Behind the glass, Laura observes, seeing the emotional anatomy of guilt, and maybe the first glimpse of truth. In the dim archives beneath the precinct, Laura's flashlight sweeps across dusty boxes labeled Missing Persons, 2013. Her gloved hands tremble slightly as she opens one and finds a photo. Martha Vance, smiling, holding a young boy who would one day be mayor. The report says case closed, presumed deceased. But the signature at the bottom stops her cold. It's Daniel Rourke's. She stares at the ink, the irony heavy. He filed the paperwork that erased the mayor's mother from the system. Somewhere above, thunder rolls. Injustice, she realizes, isn't always about cruelty. Sometimes it's about convenience. And that, too, is corruption. Daniel Rourke stands before the Internal Affairs Board, his badge heavy in his palm. A line of officers watch as questions slice through the air. Did he know her? Why the shove? Daniel's voice shakes but stays steady. "I didn't know who she was, but I saw a person in my way, not a person in pain." The room falls silent. The truth in his words feels raw, almost noble. One officer scoffs. Another nods subtly. Guilt and pride twist inside Daniel, like two serpents fighting for his soul. For the first time, he doesn't defend himself. He confesses, not to a crime, but to blindness. In that moment, justice inches closer. That evening, Laura meets Reverend Cole beneath the old bridge, where the city's homeless gather. Flickering fires illuminate faces weathered by time and neglect. Cole listens as Laura recounts what she's found. Falsified reports, hidden ties, a cover-up buried by bureaucracy. He closes his eyes and says, "Justice doesn't die in darkness. It just waits for someone brave enough to strike a match." Laura looks out over the river, the water black and restless. Somewhere in that reflection lies the city's soul, bruised, but not broken. Tomorrow, she'll bring it all to light. Morning sun strikes the glass towers of City Hall, making them gleam like false promises. Mayor Elijah Vance sits in his office, sleeves rolled up, surrounded by frantic aides. His political advisor whispers about controlling the narrative, calling the incident a misunderstanding. But Elijah isn't listening. His mother's words still echo. "You can't fix what you hide." He stares at a folder. Laura sent him anonymously. Documents proving his mother's disappearance was filed by the same police officer who shoved her. The date matches the week Elijah's campaign began. Guilt grips him, but fear is stronger. "Bury it," he finally says, voice low, almost pleading. The aides nod, moving quickly. Justice bends once again under power's weight, and a good man begins to vanish behind his own reflection. Detective Laura Pierce parks outside an abandoned storage unit where the missing person files were once archived. Inside, dust thickens the air, and fluorescent lights flicker weakly. She finds the boxes she marked the night before. Gone, replaced with empty shelves and a faint scent of bleach. Her pulse quickens. Someone's cleaning up the truth. She calls Chief Morales, but his line goes dead after a few words. Outside, An unmarked car idles, tinted windows, watching. Laura takes a slow breath, realizing this isn't about one act of brutality anymore. It's about the machine built to erase it. In the hospital, Martha Vance senses something shifting. The nurses speak softer now, the reporters have thinned, and her son visits less often. Through the television, she watches him deliver speeches about unity and compassion. His voice calm, but hollow. She turns to Reverend Cole Harris, 58, sitting by her bed, and says, "He's protecting himself, not the truth." Cole takes her hand, whispering, "Sometimes God lets a lie grow tall, so it falls harder." She smiles faintly, eyes glistening. "Then let it fall soon," she says. Justice to her has never been about revenge, only revelation. Officer Daniel Rourke returns to the precinct to find his locker emptied and his nameplate gone. Colleagues avoid his eyes. On his desk, an unsigned note, "Keep quiet," and this dies with her. Rage burns through him, but guilt tempers it. He knows the mayor's office is pulling strings, yet he also knows silence is complicity. Standing at the window, watching the city pulse under gray clouds, Daniel feels the weight of his badge even without wearing it. For the first time, he considers that redemption may mean betraying the system he once swore to protect. Night cloaks the riverfront in blue shadows. Laura meets Daniel beneath the same bridge where the homeless gather. His face looks older, carved by regret. She slides a flash drive across the table, copies of the missing files secretly backed up before they were erased. "You filed her disappearance," she says quietly. He nods, eyes wet. "Orders came from upstairs," said the case was going nowhere. Laura steps closer. "That order came from the mayor's campaign office." Silence hangs heavy. Daniel exhales, shoulders trembling. Then it's time everyone knew. In the darkness, their reflections shimmer across the water. Two flawed souls choosing truth over safety. The city awakens to headlines that shake its core. News tickers flash with leaked evidence of the cover-up. Forged reports, erased files, and whispers of the mayor's connection to the homeless woman now known as Martha Vance. Reporters crowd the courthouse steps, demanding answers. Inside, Mayor Elijah Vance sits before cameras, the calm in his voice cracking beneath the strain. He blames internal corruption and promises an investigation. But his eyes tell another story. A man watching his legacy collapse. Outside, Laura Pierce listens to his broadcast in her car, silent, knowing the storm has only begun. At the precinct, chaos erupts. Officers whisper in corners, papers vanish from desks, and loyalty fractures into silence. Daniel Rourke walks through the corridor like a ghost, ignored by those who once saluted him. On the captain's door, his reflection catches, weary, haunted, but resolute. He pulls the flash drive. Laura gave him from his pocket. Its metallic glint a small, dangerous truth. The truth now belongs not to the system, but to conscience. And conscience, once awakened, cannot be silenced again. Detective Laura Pierce meets Reverend Cole in an empty church at dusk. Stained glass spills colors across empty pews, painting their faces with fractured light. She confides that she's sent the evidence to a journalist, a risk that could end her career or her life. Cole bows his head, murmuring that truth, once spoken, can't be undone. And that's what makes it sacred. The bell tolls in the tower above them, echoing like a verdict. Justice, she realizes, isn't waiting at the courthouse. It's waiting here, between confession and consequence. As night falls, Elijah returns to the hospital. His mother lies awake, watching the evening news that now loops his downfall. "They're coming for me," he says softly. Martha studies his face, once the pride of her heart, now shadowed by fear. "Let them," she replies, her tone both tender and unyielding. "You built walls to protect yourself from shame, but shame was the only thing that could save you." He lowers his head. Outside, thunder rolls. For the first time in years, Elijah feels like a child again, and guilt feels strangely like grace. At midnight, Laura drives across the bridge, city lights flickering in her rearview mirror. A phone rings. The journalist confirming the story is live. On every channel, the truth spreads like wildfire: the forged report, the mayor's family secret, and the corruption beneath the badge. Meanwhile, Daniel stands in his apartment, watching the broadcast. His face breaks into quiet relief. In a city addicted to lies, two souls chose the harder path. And it's only the beginning. Justice, fragile but alive, flickers again in the dark. By morning, the city no longer belongs to its leaders. Protesters fill the streets, chanting beneath banners soaked in rain, faces lit by the glow of outrage and hope. News drones hum overhead, capturing the moment truth escaped control. Inside a dim cafe, Laura Pierce watches the chaos unfold on live screens, her coffee untouched. She knows justice has teeth, and once unleashed, it bites without mercy. Across town, Elijah Vance stares from his office window as the crowd's noise rises like judgment. For years, he fed them speeches about honesty. Now their anger feeds on his silence. The balance of power has shifted, and it will not shift back. Inside the mayor's office, the air vibrates with ringing phones and panicked aides. Elijah's lawyer urges him to resign before the city council forces him out. But he can't move. He keeps staring at a single framed photograph of himself as a boy, arm around his mother, years before ambition devoured compassion. "If I step down," he mutters, "they'll destroy everything I built." The lawyer's reply cuts like glass. "You already did." The words long after the man leaves. Elijah finally removes the photo from his desk and places it face down. A sound like thunder rolls through the city. But it's not thunder. It's the people outside, chanting his name with fury. Daniel Rourke wakes to sirens echoing through the city. His badge lies on the nightstand, beside the newspaper that names him, the whistleblower cop. For the first time in years, he doesn't hide from the mirror. The reflection staring back isn't clean or heroic. It's human. His phone buzzes with unknown numbers. Reporters, threats, offers. He turns it off. Justice, he realizes, doesn't make you popular. It just lets you sleep again. As the sunlight breaks through the blinds, he finally breathes without armor. At the hospital, Martha Vance insists on being wheeled outside to feel the air. The nurse hesitates, but she smiles, a quiet defiance. In the courtyard, she watches the protest march pass by, faces full of fire. A child waves a handmade sign that reads, "Justice has a name." She whispers a prayer, not for revenge, but for healing, for her son, for the city, for everyone too proud to bend until truth broke them. As rain begins to fall, she closes her eyes. The drops feel warm, almost like forgiveness. Night cloaks the skyline as Laura meets Daniel in the same cafe where it began. No reporters, no files, no secrets. Just two people who broke the silence. "They'll come for us," he says. Laura smiles faintly. "They already did. We're still here." Outside, the television above the counter shows Elijah stepping to a podium, resignation speech trembling on his lips. But before he speaks, his eyes lift toward the camera, not as a politician, but as a man ready to face what he's run from. The world watches. Truth stands taller than power tonight. For the first time, the city feels clean again. Dawn spreads like bruised light over the city's skyline. Reporters flood City Hall, their cameras humming as Mayor Elijah Vance steps to the podium for the final time. His voice, steady but hollow, confesses the truth. The forged reports, the campaign orders, the silence he bought with fear. Every word carves away the illusion of power until only the man remains. Outside, the crowd listens in stunned quiet. Redemption, it seems, demands humiliation first. When he finishes, no applause follows. Only the soft click of cameras and the whisper of rain against marble. Truth, at last, has taken its toll. Later that morning, Elijah walks into the hospital alone. His mother waits by the window, face lit by soft sunlight. He kneels beside her chair, no longer mayor, just her son. "I said the truth," he murmurs. She studies him for a long moment before whispering, "Then you're finally free." Tears slip down his face as she reaches to wipe one away. For years he tried to control the story. Now he's learning to live within it. Outside, the city hums, uncertain but gentler. Between them, forgiveness blooms quietly, fragile yet unbreakable. Detective Laura Pierce testifies before a closed ethics committee. No cameras, no applause, only truth. She lays out evidence of systemic cover-ups, naming those who falsified records and silenced witnesses. Some officials avert their eyes. Others scribble notes, calculating damage. When she finishes, the chairman asks why she risked everything. Her answer is quiet, almost tender. Because justice isn't supposed to need permission. The silence that follows feels heavier than any verdict. She leaves the room not as a detective, but as a citizen who finally remembered what her badge was for. Daniel Rourke sits across from an internal review board once more, this time not to defend himself, but to tell the truth. He admits to filing the disappearance report years ago under orders he didn't question. He speaks of fear, how easy it is to obey when obedience feels like safety. The panel listens in silence. "I can't undo what I did," he says, "but I can stop pretending it didn't happen." His voice trembles, yet carries peace. When he steps outside, the rain has stopped. The air smells of something clean, almost new. That night, the church bell tolls over a quiet city. Inside, Reverend Cole stands at the altar, addressing a small crowd, citizens, officers, and strangers brought together by the storm. "Justice," he says, "was never meant to destroy. It was meant to rebuild." In the pews sit Laura, Daniel, and Elijah, each scarred yet lighter, united not by victory but by truth. Martha, too frail to attend, listens from her hospital bed as the service is broadcast live. Her smile carries the peace of a woman who has seen her city wake up. The bell tolls again, echoing through the streets like a heartbeat finding its rhythm once more. Morning sunlight pours gently through the windows of a newly built shelter on the edge of downtown. Once a condemned warehouse, now reborn through the mayor's final decree before his resignation. Volunteers bustle quietly, serving food, sorting clothes. At the center of it all sits Martha Vance, smiling faintly as she folds blankets with slow grace. Daniel and Laura arrive together, uncertain yet drawn forward. Martha looks up and says softly, "You came." There's no bitterness in her tone, only peace. The past no longer binds them. The city, once defined by shame, now begins to breathe in forgiveness. Elijah Vance walks through the same streets where his convoy once rolled in polished arrogance. Now, he moves unnoticed, dressed simply, carrying a box of supplies. He stops by a mural painted across the underpass, his mother's face surrounded by words. Mercy is the hardest truth. Children run past laughing, their joy echoing between concrete pillars. He smiles faintly, placing the box at the shelter door. Redemption, he realizes, isn't an act. It's a choice you remake every morning. For the first time in years, he feels unafraid of being seen. Inside the precinct, the air feels lighter. Laura returns her badge to the chief's desk, not in defeat, but in peace. "You're one of the good ones," he mutters. She smiles. "No, sir, just one of the honest ones." As she steps into the sunlight outside, the noise of the city blends into quiet harmony. Daniel waits near his car, freshly reinstated, this time to lead community outreach, not enforcement. They exchange a nod that says more than gratitude or apology ever could. Justice, finally, feels human again. At dusk, Martha sits by her window, watching the skyline glow in hues of gold and violet. Reverend Cole visits, bringing her a folded newspaper. The headline reads, "City reforms pass unanimously." She smiles, eyes misting. "It took breaking everything," she whispers, "to remember what mattered." Cole nods, his voice low and warm. "Sometimes justice isn't a hammer, it's a mirror." The church bells ring in the distance. Martha leans back, closing her eyes, the sound washing over her like a benediction. Night descends gently over the city. In the final montage, the shelter hums with life. Daniel helps serve meals. Laura oversees youth programs. Elijah plants trees along the riverfront. And Reverend Cole's church doors remain open past midnight. Martha's mural watches over them all. Serene, eternal, the narration fades in like a heartbeat. Justice begins with truth, but it lives in mercy. The camera rises slowly above the city, where rain has stopped. Lights flicker like promises kept, and hope, fragile yet fierce, finally takes root. Rory sure Tuesday in Sylvan past week.